Now we will study and see how the constraints will be applied to the activities. Constraints are the limitations that are applied to the activities. Sometimes some items are not in the control of the project personnel, so they have to apply some constraint and mention about that constraint. For example, you have a foundation, and that is going to be completed on 15th of April, but its equipment is coming on 25th of April, so you cannot install the equipment before 26th. Instead of whether the equipment foundation has been completed or not. For such kind of activities which are not in control, we have to apply the constraints so that so that we can see the impact of those constraints as well. Constraints has many types. They especially start on and finish on constraints are available. So how to apply the constraints? First of all, we have to select the activity. Then we have to go to the status tab of activity details. Here at the bottom, you can see the constraints option. So if I will drop down this constraint option, you can see as late the constraints as late as possible, mandatory start, start on or before, start on or after. So the mandatory start is the hard constraint, and the other constraints like start on or after, these are the soft constraints. So now I will tell you how to apply the constraint to the activities. Suppose there is an activity of electrical equipment and cable installation. We will go to the construction WBS, and I will see construction electrical equipment and cable installation. Suppose you can see that this activity is starting as per logical relationship 25th of March 20, but as per client deliverable, this suppose this activity from the vendor is expected to deliver on 14th of April. So we will going to apply a constraint. We have already selected the activity. We have chosen the status toolbar from the activity details. Here we will apply the constraint. So I am going to apply a constraint start on. Then I will mention the date on which it is expected to start. So I am putting the date of 15th of April 2020. So you can see that the star has been applied to this activity, which is showing that the constraint has been applied. And moreover, you have seen that its date has been changed from the 20th March to 15th of April. It has changed the logical relationship. It has overruled the relationship that was with the previous activity. And on the right side, you can see that this one has become critical. Now the critical path has been changed, and the overall project duration you can see has been changed, and it is going up to 28th October 20. Previously it was 376 days. So I have applied the automatically schedule options, so that's why its impact has already been applied. So you can see the view log and project report, and at the bottom you can see that critical activities has been changed, and because it has changed drastically with this constraint, so should be avoided as much as possible to apply the constraints. As per our current schedule, our project is going to be completed on 28th of October 2020. And if we want to complete this project up to 20th of October, so we will change the we will apply the constraint. So select the activity, then go to the status tab and select the mandatory finish constraint from here, and I'm going to change the date from 20th October to 28th October to 20th October. So now you can see that this project is going to be completed up to 20th October, and he has not modified the links, but he has readjusted the schedule, and it will compress the schedule and it will try to bring back the schedule, but the constraint has overruled the logic's relationships. So whether the other relationships are going to be completed at that time or not, but it has constrained or put limit to the final commissioning activity that it should be completed up to 20th October as much as possible. Now, if you want to see that which constraint is applied, so you can display it on into the columns as well. So I am going to do the right click here in the activity fields option, activity table option, go to the columns. Then I will find the constraint. It is very important that spelling should be exactly matching, otherwise it will not find out the word. So I will find out the primary constraint and will shift on to the right side, apply, okay, and you can see that primary constraint and primary constraint date has been displayed here. If we will go to that activity of construction in which electrical activity is planned to be started on 15th of April, you can see from the column. From here we can also assign the constraints as per the requirement, and you can also change the date from here. If you go at the bottom where we have assigned the primary constraint, so you can see that we have applied the mandatory constraint here, and we have modified the date from the 28th October to. After applying the mandatory constraint, if you see the schedule report, it will show a different report. Now you can see that critical activities are showing 5, and you can see the report of constraint here as well, that we have applied 2 constraints, and that is showing in the statistics report. Previously, I told you that how to apply the constraint, and if you want to remove some constraint, then you have to follow this step. You have already shown the primary constraint and primary constraint date in the column fields. So select this primary constraint option drop down list, and from here you can assign the none. It will automatically disappear its constraint. So you can change, you can see that its project finish date has been changed again. So same can be applied from here. Go to the status option, and from here you can assign the none option. It will automatically unassign the constraint. The advantage of the constraint is that sometimes in your schedule you have to build an activity or milestone that is dependent on other contractor or vendor or client. Suppose you are an MEP contractor and you are dependent upon civil contractor. When the civil contractor will give you a slab for your MEP works, until he gives you cannot work. So you have to put milestone in the schedule. When if he failed to deliver the slab on the required time, obviously your activities will slip down further. So in this case, if he is delay at his end, your activities will ultimately delay, but your delay is dependent upon other contractors. So in this way you can get the EOT from the client. So that is the advantage of the constraint.